Well, as we were just talking about the new tax law, while some people out there are griping about how much tax they need to pay, 60 companies are avoiding paying federal taxes thanks to the new tax law. That's the TCJA, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This is all according to new analysis done by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Now, some of those companies are behemoths like Amazon, Delta, which we were talking about earlier, IBM, General Motors, and Netflix. So I actually wrote this up and I was looking at it yesterday. So Amazon actually tops that list in terms of revenue and profits that it made. And it gets to pay zero
dollars.
Zero
I know, that headline
in taxes
is so
for the second year. And I think what's crazy here is that 60 is double how many companies were actually paying federal tax just from the year before. So we were looking at it, this new Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. There was always a concern. We already knew it was for the wealthy and that it was a big corporate tax cut, right? Lowered that tax rate to 21%.
Trickle down.
But the effective tax rate for those companies just to a meager 7%.
Right.
But it was still unclear how many companies were actually going to be able to squirrel out of or dodge paying taxes altogether. Well, the answer is now in double.
I'm, of course, putting on my capitalist hat. My question is, okay, I understand it doubled, but doesn't that just mean that there's a lot of innovation happening at these companies where they are making enough money or they are reinvesting, hopefully, in human capital? I know that's deep down inside not true, but I want to believe that there's a silver lining here where it's actually feeding the employee or feeding more hiring initiatives or reaching out to new folks to really bolster the companies themselves if they are growing so quickly.
I mean, I think that can be true for a company like Amazon, for example. They are innovating all the time, But
as we heard in the big bank hearing earlier this week, that was one of the main questions that these representatives had for these big bank CEOs. It's like, you guys got this massive tax cut, but your pay went up. And what did you guys actually do to reinvest into your employees? Wages didn't necessarily go up. It was kind of convenient how Bank of America's Moynihan was like, announced the day before the hearing, we actually raised the wages for our tellers.
Citing a news article that was published yesterday afternoon, we actually did up the minimum wage, and here we are. So yeah, that was kind of a pat on the back. But as we know, that income inequality is so vast, and unfortunately doesn't seem like the gap is getting smaller.
No, absolutely. And as these companies make more money, pay less in tax, essentially average Americans are struggling. And I think that that's really what angers them so much.
That was a very robust tax block led by
Kristin.